Hey everybody, it's Gabriel Cardona from BitBox and Bitcoin.com. We're here today with Shun, the creator of the Yenome wallet, and we figured we would take 15 minutes or so and bring you up to speed on the things we've been building on the new developer platform for Bitcoin.com, and then we would probably take around the same amount of time to talk to Shun and to figure out the cool stuff that he's building with his team. So thank you for joining us, and let's jump right in. I'm also going to be demoing some stuff on my computer so that we can hopefully mix it up with the video of us later. You won't see that initially, but that's what's happening here. So just some quick update on who I am. Not a lot of people know who I am or what I've been working on prior to joining Bitcoin.com. So I've been a software engineer for about 10 years. I'm based in San Francisco, although now I'll be splitting my time between San Francisco and Tokyo. And in college, I was part of the HTML5 working group. Google paid for me to be a member of that, and I ended up being an acknowledged contributor to the HTML5 specification. And that was an amazing experience. I got to work personally with Tim Berners-Lee and a couple of my other heroes in the web development space. So that really supercharged me early on to be very passionate about web technology. And then from there, I was able to get a job at Trulia.com. I was there for the IPO in 2012. And that was also a really great experience. I learned a ton about object-oriented programming and PHP, and that set me up to do some big things later on. So after that, I have basically built several large websites for large companies. I built an internal website for Walmart. I worked on Taco Bell's iPhone app infrastructure. I built the backend for that in Ruby on Rails. I built Target's Black Friday website a few years ago. And then most recently, prior to joining Bitcoin.com, I was at AAA building their online garage. So last year when Bitcoin Cash happened, I basically stopped working for AAA, started building a 3D printer project, which is still live at clone.earth. And I spent about 4 months on that. I built maybe 10 machines. It was just me and a couple friends. And it was a great learning experience. I had a blast going down that path. Around last year in November, I needed some smart contracts because I wanted to connect the 3D printer to the Internet of Things. And I started working with Truffle framework, which is an Ethereum development framework. And then while I was working on that, I just kind of had a realization that that level of developer tooling did not exist in the Bitcoin Cash space. And so I had started brainstorming on potentially working on that project. And then I had a really great meeting with Pete Flint, who is the founder of Trulia. Truly an A+ level entrepreneur. He's a VC now at NFX Guild in San Francisco. He invited me to his office and we brainstormed, and he expressed to me that they had been talking to several 3D printer companies and it was a very hard space to be in. And we started brainstorming about some other stuff that I had been working on, and he just said, you know, the biggest opportunity from our perspective is in the blockchain space. So if you're an engineer and you have skills in that area, I would focus on that. That was last year on January 31st, and I totally shut down my 3D printer project and started building BitBox that night. So the very first line of BitBox was written on January 31st. It's been about 6 months since then, and it has really been an amazing journey. It's been the most successful thing I've ever worked on, and it's been one of the most inspired periods of my life. So if I'm awake and I'm not hanging out with my son, I'm pretty much working on BitBox now. So that's how that started. And then maybe around 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago, Roger and Corbin reached out and expressed that they liked my work and that they wanted to bring BitBox to Bitcoin.com. And I knew that that was the best play. I knew that I needed to be on a team if I wanted to accomplish great things. If you're on the right team, you cannot lose. And if you're on the wrong team, you can't win. And I really do believe in the Bitcoin.com team, that it's the heart and the soul of the Bitcoin Cash industry. And if you're supercharged to change the world with Bitcoin Cash, you end up on our team. So I took that opportunity. I came to Tokyo maybe around 6 weeks ago, 5.5 weeks ago, and it's been a total phase shift in my life. If you would have told me 7 months ago that I would be sitting here doing this now or working with the team I'm working with, I would have been shocked. So I'm super grateful to Roger and Emil and Mate and Jared and Gerald and the rest of the team. No question about it. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity. So that's how I ended up working on BitBox and how I came to Bitcoin.com. And since I've been here, we have started building developer.bitcoin.com, which is our development platform. And it's basically taking the work I started with BitBox and accelerating it with the support and the branding of Bitcoin.com. So if you go in your web browser to developer.bitcoin.com, we'll probably show some screenshots of this now. You will see what we've been working on. And the whole theme of the site is change the world with Bitcoin Cash. We really do believe that Bitcoin Cash is a transformative technology. It picks up the original roadmap and vision that was laid down by Satoshi Nakamoto, and it's incredibly exciting technology. So we want to do everything we can to empower developers to change the world with Bitcoin Cash. And the site has two main sections. We have a knowledge base and we have a suite of developer tools. And the marketing we're throwing down for the knowledge base is go from hobbyist to professional step by step. And then the branding we're throwing down for the develop section, or the marketing we're using on the develop section, is go from idea to app 10 times faster than the competition. And we want to give you everything you need to go from being a hobbyist to a professional, because the supply versus demand for good engineers is already, way out of not matched. There's just not enough good engineers to go around for the demand, and the demand for good blockchain engineers is orders of magnitude more, and there's orders of magnitude less good blockchain engineers. Everything is moving very quick. There's a lot of new technology. It takes many different skill sets to converge upon being a good blockchain engineer, so we want to do everything we can to help people ramp up their skills and their knowledge. If you check out our knowledge base, it consists of 4 sections right now. The first one is Mastering Bitcoin Cash. So Andreas Antonopoulos, who, if you're watching this video, you likely know who he is. He's one of the most prolific and articulate people in the entire Bitcoin Cash space. Along with Roger, I would give credit to Andreas and Roger for being the people who really turned my brain on to the power of what Bitcoin could be. And I'm sure I've seen 1,000 hours of both of those guys talking. Mastering Bitcoin, in my opinion, is the masterwork for Bitcoin. So if you're studying Bitcoin BTC, go out and get Mastering Bitcoin. It's available online under Creative Commons. You can get it on GitHub. You can go buy it from O'Reilly Books if you want to support him, which I suggest. It's an amazing work, and it has 2 different editions. The first edition was licensed under Creative Commons Share Alike. The second edition is Creative Commons No Derivatives. So we forked the first edition, and we are calling it Mastering Bitcoin Cash. And we've just been going through chapter by chapter and updating any BTC references to BCH, swapping out code examples with BitBox stuff, up-to-date screenshots and price quotes, etc. So Mastering Bitcoin Cash is the place to go to really get the full picture of the way Bitcoin Cash works. It covers everything from the super high level, what is Bitcoin Cash? It talks about keys and addresses and wallets, all the different transaction types. It talks about the peer-to-peer network, talks about blockchain and how mining works, and then even a chapter on security. And according to the Mastering Bitcoin GitHub repo, it's the second edition is supposed to be licensed under Creative Commons Share Alike this month. It came out 12 months ago today, and he says in the README, the publisher says they're going to license it Share Alike within 12 months. I reached out to him on Twitter the other day, and I haven't got a reply. I'm sure he's incredibly busy, but the intention is once they make edition 2 of Mastering Bitcoin Creative Commons Share Alike, we'll update this documentation. But we wanted to be super clear that we all the work we did here was from the first edition, which was licensed under Creative Commons Share Alike. The second part of our knowledge base is tutorials. So while I've been building BitBox over the past few months, I did a bunch of tutorials on how to build things with BitBox. And basically we ported all those over and have started to add new stuff. So this shows everything from how to sign and verify messages, how to convert addresses between legacy and cache address, how to create BIP44 accounts. We have scaffolds. BitBox has scaffolds so you can bootstrap apps in different frameworks. I'll discuss in a bit. How to use the built-in paper wallet generator, how to do mnemonics, how to encode and decode BIP21 URLs, how to get the unspent transaction outputs for an address. Some libraries we wrote, how to read and write from the chain per the memo and block press protocols. We recently added TypeScript support thanks to the amazing James Kramer, so how to use that. And then just a few days ago, I put out a post on just how to get started, because I've been getting a lot of messages saying there's a lot going on here. How do I actually get started? So just recently we put out one on how to get started. So that's our tutorials. We intend to update that once or twice a week. If you're a technical writer or if you want to be involved in some way, all of this is open source. Everything on our developer platform is 100% open source under the MIT license. Feel free to fork any of these repos, offer us pull requests. We're incredibly responsive. We have chat rooms on the Bitcoin Cash Fund's ambassador.cash Discord channel. We have a BitBox channel there, so you can drop in and ask questions, and we're incredibly responsive pretty much any time of the day. The third part of our developer knowledge base is our Insights blog. So this was inspired by Apple, I believe, has an Insights blog or a developer's blog as well. And what they do is they allow people who have built stuff with their developer tooling to write a post. So for example, House has an app on iOS App Store, and they have a really nice post on Apple's developer blog where it shows big pictures of their office and their management team, and then some engineers kind of brainstorming around a table, and then nice pictures of their product on iPad and iPhone. And then throughout the article, as it's plugging House and talking about how great it is, they'll say how they leveraged Apple's developer tools and how they deployed. So that's what we're going for here. Our Insights blog is for people who've built stuff with BitBox, and the theme is what worked, what didn't, and what would they do different. Of course, we hope that there will be more in the what worked category, but we want constructive criticism, and we want to help other developers avoid any of the pitfalls that these people may have struggled with whenever they were developing. So if you created something with BitBox and you want to shine some light on your project, please reach out to me. I'm looking for anybody who wants to add content to this. So that's our Insights blog. And then the fourth part of our knowledge base is the human interface guidelines, which we're working on right now. It says coming soon here. So when I first became a software engineer maybe 10 years ago, one of the most profound documents that I saw was the Apple Human Interface Guidelines. I remember kind of being shocked that somebody had thought so deeply about how humans should interface with technology. I still think it's one of the most profound documents out there for engineers and designers and people who are just kind of interested. So whenever I started working with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, it became clear to me that designers and engineers, we don't really have a formal way of interfacing with this technology yet. We have a lot of history with money. We don't have a ton of history with digital money. So we were working with some people to formalize a study and a recommendation for how designers and engineers should create apps to have people interface with digital currencies. So that is our knowledge base. Again, the idea is that you can go from hobbyist to professional step by step, and that we have everything, all the tools needed here for you to do that. So we have Mastering Bitcoin Cash, so you can get the high level and the low level of the entire system. We have tutorials, which are little tiny snippets of BitBox functionality with some code samples that you can copy and paste to bootstrap your application. We have an Insights blog, which is blog posts by people who have shipped successful apps with BitBox, how they did it, what worked and what didn't, what would they do differently, and then code samples from their apps so you can also bootstrap your application. And then finally, we have this human interface guidelines, the idea being that we need to formalize some way that developers and designers can have people interfacing with cryptocurrency. So that's our deal there. The second part of developer.bitcoin.com is our developer tooling. So this is based around the work I've been doing over the past 6 months on BitBox, and it consists of a few different areas as well. So the first part is our JavaScript SDK, which is BitBox SDK, and it's been downloaded over 37,000 times from 100 different countries. It's incredibly powerful and fully featured. It does pretty much everything you would expect, from mnemonics to crypto, HD nodes, EC pairs. It does transactions of all the different standard types, so we can do pay to pub key hash, pay to multi-sig, pay to script hash, null data, so you can write to the chain with op return. We support all of the new opcodes, which were re-enabled on the May 15th. You can do address conversion. There's all kinds of utility methods for doing address conversion between legacy and testnet, or I'm sorry, legacy and cache address. You can detect if the address is mainnet or testnet. You can do unit conversion. So if you have a whole Bitcoin and you need to know what it is in Satoshis, or if you need to know what it is in bits. And then it has a couple other things like a built-in console. So whenever I was a Ruby on Rails developer, I remember the Rails console being incredibly powerful. Ruby has IRB, which is the built-in REPL, and the Rails developer took it, excuse me, they took that built-in REPL and just extended it with the whole Ruby on Rails API. So when you run Rails console, all of a sudden you've got all of the Ruby on Rails API right there at the console. Well, Node.js has a built-in REPL as well, and because of the architecture of Node.js is very modular, you can require the Node.js REPL and then you can extend it. So basically, if you run BitBox console from the command line, you get a full-on Node.js REPL, so it has 100% of the JavaScript API, but on top of that, it has 100% of the BitBox API. And this is incredibly powerful. I probably spend most of my time in there when I'm doing development because there's absolutely zero overhead. You just fire up a console and you can start testing your ideas. Any of the code samples you see on our website, you can copy and paste directly into the console and they will work. So that's incredibly powerful. And every time you create a BitBox app, you can give it a bitbox.js configuration file, and in it you can point to different environments. So whenever you fire up your BitBox console, you can say bitbox console -- environment staging, and all of your cloud commands will go to your staging environment. So you can set up multiple environments. So as you're testing, you can very quickly send your commands to testnet or mainnet or your local host, whatever you need. Also built into BitBox are scaffolds. So one of the things that Truffle does, they have something called Truffle Boxes. And they're basically just apps which are already ready to roll with Truffle integration. You can just clone this repo and you've got a React web app with Truffle built in. So we have something similar called scaffolds. And we have very basic BIP44 wallets in React, Angular, Node.js, Vue.js, and Next.js. If you run bitbox new myapp -- scaffold React, it will create a very basic BIP44 wallet. It will create with this code flow. So it creates a 256-bit mnemonic in one of the 8 languages we support. Our mnemonics class can create mnemonics in English, French, Italian, Spanish, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese simplified and traditional. And then you can pass in your own word dictionary for what it's worth if you have a 2048 word dictionary. But these are the 8 that we support out of the box. So whenever you create one of these scaffolds, it will create you a 256-bit mnemonic in one of these languages. It will then create you a root seed and a master node, and then the first 10 external change accounts per the BIP44 specification or convention, and then it'll create a one-to-one pay-to-pub key hash transaction between 2 of them. And so you have all of these code to ready to roll. So if you need to create an application, you can go from nothing to a working BIP44 wallet in under a minute with the BitBox scaffold command. It's also got a paper wallet generator built in. So you can create paper wallets from the command line, and you can do them in cache or legacy address, and you can do them in any of the 8 different languages we just mentioned. And I should mention that everything in BitBox, all of the classes, all of the methods, all of these scaffolds and generators, everything works on mainnet and testnet. So anything I describe, you can just know that it'll work on both of the networks. And then we also have a built-in reverse proxy. So Bitcoin D doesn't have cores turned on by default, so that's just one of the awkward things when you're trying to figure out how to send commands to Bitcoin D. You've got interfacing with the Json Rpc is kind of awkward, and that's one of the problems I solved in the next thing we're going to talk about. But if you want to just send commands from your local host, if you run BitBox proxy, it'll fire up a little reverse cores proxy on localhost 1337, and then you can send your commands to it, and it'll post them out to different websites. So that's a very high level of BitBox. The BitBox JavaScript SDK, we are definitely going to be digging into that in subsequent videos where we'll start digging into the different classes and all the different methods, but I just wanted to give a very high level overview of that right now. So as I mentioned, dealing with the Json Rpc I found to be a little awkward. I understand that it's an RPC, and that in those kinds of cases it's not uncommon to use like just one HTTP verb, but having sort of spent my career working with modern web services, I'm very used to having like a REST API. So things are basically the CRUD verbs of database actions, create, read, update, delete, are mapped to the HTTP verbs of get, post, put, and delete. I might have said those in the opposite order, but the point being, you can create an instance of a model, you can read it back, you can update it, and you can delete it. And you can do this all over HTTP with HTTP verbs. So rest.bitcoin.com, which is going live very soon, is the entire Bitcoin Cash JSON RPC over HTTP. And basically, it only supports get and post, but the idea being if you're reading from the chain, if you're getting the mempool info or getting the blockchain info or something like that, difficulty, block height, whatever, that's a GET request. And then if you're going to be updating the chain in some way, like posting a raw transaction, for example, that's a POST request. And the normal JSON RPC, it has one endpoint, and you pass in an ordered array of arguments where the first one is the endpoint you want to hit, and then your ordered arguments after that. We modernized that a little bit, so now it's all based on a URL, and then the different values you want to pass into the endpoint will either be parts of the URL or they'll be query string parameters if they're optional. So if they're required, it's part of the URL. If they're optional, they're query string parameters. So BitBox SDK has been downloaded 37,000 times from 100 countries, and that's pretty exciting, but that's really only part of the story. The REST API, which is live today at rest.bitbox.earth, but we're getting ready to launch it at rest.bitcoin.com this week. It's been doing around 300,000 requests every single day. I think we did 2.5 million last week. So, you know, we're doing around between 4 and 5 a second. These are reads and writes from the blockchain. So I think this really gives a sense that developers out there are using this in a big way. And I predict that this will be very popular. And this is going to be the front end of our cloud. So we kind of view BitBox SDK and the entire developer tool set as like a 1, 2, 3 kind of punch. The first one is you need to build an app, and to do that you need tooling. And so we released this entire library. It's completely open source, and this will get you started 10 times faster than the competition. There's really nothing in the same league as BitBox JavaScript SDK. So once you create your app, you need the ability to scale it and deploy it on demand. And if you've worked with modern services like DigitalOcean or Heroku or AWS, you know that they offer infrastructure as a service or platform as a service or software as a service. So we're going to be offering blockchain as a service. So you'll be able to spin up and down full nodes of any flavor, ABC, XT, BU, Flowy, etc., over HTTP or a GUI very similar to DigitalOcean's. And you'll be able to scale them on demand, and then there will be a whole ecosystem of add-ons for doing things like logging or data analytics or visualization, or I'm sure things I've not even thought of yet, all built with BitBox as well. And so that is ultimately step 2 of the 1, 2, 3 punch. So you have the developer tooling, then you have a cloud. The front end of the cloud is going to be our REST API. So whenever you spin up your own custom REST API, you spin up your own custom node, we'll wrap it in an instance of REST. We'll give you higher throughput and either a lower rate limit or whitelist your IP and service level agreements, that kind of stuff. And then step 3, once you've got your app and it's deployed on demand, you need to make money off of it. So we're going to be offering an app store, and it's going to be where we curate and aggregate the very best Bitcoin Cash apps that are out there, and we allow developers to make money with in-app purchases, paid downloads, streaming media, and tokens. Those are the 4 areas we want to focus on. So that is the ability, that's our developer platform, giving the ability to go from idea to application 10 times faster than the competition. And so just to cover that really quickly again, that consists of our BitBox JavaScript SDK, which is a fully featured framework for doing anything related to Bitcoin Cash. If you're doing web apps and you want Bitcoin Cash integration, you should be using BitBox. In the same way, if you're building for Apple's platform, you're going to eventually use Xcode and Cocoa Touch. If you're building web apps for Bitcoin Cash, you should absolutely be using the Bitcoin.com suite of tooling. So we have our JavaScript SDK, which has been downloaded 37,000 times from over 100 countries. After that, we have our cloud, where the first part of that is live now. That's our REST API. It's been getting around 300,000 requests every day. That's the Json Rpc over HTTP. And then after that is our app store, and that allows you to monetize your work. So that is the super high level of what we've been building at Bitcoin.com. Everything is going better than I planned. I had told Roger when we first talked a few months ago that within 6 months, BitBox will be the go-to tool set for all Bitcoin Cash devs around the world, and I still believe we're on target to hit that. And in fact, it's just accelerating now. So I guess I'll close this part by just again thanking Roger and the rest of the team at Bitcoin.com for this opportunity. This is really a phase shift in my personal life, and I'm incredibly grateful. So, thank you very much. Thanks for sitting through that. I appreciate it.
Wow, it's great.
Thank you.
I'm kind of overwhelmed by your work.
Yeah. It's been the most inspired work I've ever done, for sure.
It was so good.
Yeah, it's been a fun 6 months, and I imagine in 6 months, I mean, the pace of change is accelerating on the Bitcoin Cash chain. Excuse me. So whenever Ethereum forked,
Mm-hmm.
that, in my mind, that set the precedent that a huge coin can fork.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, we were still going through the scaling debate, and I remember telling my close friends, Bitcoin is going to fork.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to look no further than Ethereum to now know. We know it can be done. We know two camps can settle out once the dust settles. So it's only a matter of time, because there were so many smart people and so much money that was just locked in this weird struggle for too long. You know, engineers need pragmatic solutions, and we could have solved this a long time ago, and it was clear to me that it wasn't going to happen. So I was telling people that as soon as Bitcoin forks, one of the camps is just going to have an explosion of creativity, because there's just so many people who want to invest their creative energy back into Bitcoin, and they're unable to at this time. And as soon as Bitcoin Cash forked, my intuition was that's the one.